5 unique ways to cook and eat tofu. Whether you love tofu, hate tofu, whether you're new to tofu or you think you've had every kind of tofu preparation there is, I really think you guys are gonna like this video. I tried to come up with 5 not only interesting and unique and different techniques, like each of them are pretty different from each other, but they're also techniques that I actually use all the time, and these are recipes that I love with a lot of different versions. I think everyone is gonna find something that they can use in this video. I saved a really interesting one for the end, so stay tuned for that, and let's get started. This is gonna seem a little bit odd, but one of my favorite ways to use tofu is actually in smoothies. That's what I did when I recreated Hailey Bieber's strawberry glazed skin smoothie, the one that she had on Erewhon that was $17 and it had the pink and white strawberry creamsicle thing going on. That looked awesome, but first of all, it wasn't vegan, and second of all, it was $17, so I had to recreate it at home. And what I found is that tofu is a really great and budget-friendly way to pump up your morning smoothie with a bit of protein and just give it a little bit more staying power and just make it a bit more satiating. But obviously, you don't want it to taste like tofu, so the trick is to do a combination of sweet fruits and add something else that's creamy like avocado or a spoonful of peanut butter. That combination really works to not only make it taste delicious and give it a really nice, thick, smooth consistency like a milkshake, but it will also give you all the things that you want to have in a smoothie. It's going to have the fiber, it's going to have the fat, and it's going to have the protein, all of which is going to make for a really satiating smoothie. I love ingredients that do double duty. So for example, these strawberries are going to make the smoothie taste delicious, but they're also rich in vitamin C, and vitamin C can help you to absorb iron, and there's definitely some iron-rich ingredients here. I add pumpkin seeds for fiber, zinc, and protein. I add a little vanilla for flavor, and then my soft tofu. This is going to blend silky smooth, and I'm going to add some avocado for the same reason. Also helps to absorb those fat-soluble vitamins. Add a couple of dates and just a little bit of maple syrup for sweetness and flavor and minerals. Dates are loaded with potassium. I'm going to blend that until it's nice and smooth, and this literally tastes like a strawberry milkshake. It's crazy. I only decorate the glass because that's how they do it at Erewhon, and I was trying to recreate that experience, and it is very fun, but it's definitely an optional step. I love how much fiber and protein this one little smoothie has. Recipe below. This next one I actually need a little bit of help naming because I was just gonna say pan-fried tofu, but this is not just pan-fried tofu. So let me tell you what it is, and then if you have any ideas of what I should call this method, comment below and let me know, because I feel like pan-fried is not sufficient. You're gonna drain the water from the package, and I like to go one step further and actually press the tofu. They make tofu presses that I will link below in the description box that make it really easy, but if you don't have one, what I like to do is wrap it in a clean kitchen towel and weigh it down with something heavy like a cookbook or something, and kind of just let it sit for a little while until some of that excess moisture has been removed from the tofu. And what this does is it means that whatever seasonings we add have a little bit more space to kind of get inside and really marinate the tofu and make it taste extra delicious. So it's an optional step, but one that I totally recommend, especially if you don't like that kind of watery flavor that tofu can have. You're gonna get all the excess water out, and it's going to taste so much better. The next thing that's different about this recipe is that I don't just fry it in any kind of olive oil or avocado oil. I pan fry this using the olive oil from a jar of sun-dried tomatoes. This oil is infused with the sun-dried tomatoes, the herbs, and the spices, and it adds so much quick flavor. I love to saute vegetables in this oil as well too, but definitely when I'm making this particular recipe, it's such a game changer. Then for the tofu, I add what I call my chicken spices, and I'm not gonna say it tastes like chicken because it doesn't. I think it's its own thing, but these are seasonings that are traditionally used on chicken, and so for me, there's kind of a chickeny quality about this particular combination. So I toss it really generously with the spices. I try to make sure that it's really evenly coated, and then when the pan is hot, then I add my tofu. That's a really big important part because you want to make sure that that initial contact with the tofu is going to give you that nice sizzle, that sear. That's going to create instant flavor. You don't want to move it around too much. You want to give it some time to caramelize and get a little bit crispy around the edges. If you want really crispy tofu, you can also sprinkle some cornstarch in with the spices, and that will give you a nice kind of crispy outer layer. Once it's nice and browned, I like to turn off the heat and sprinkle on a little bit of nutritional yeast. You don't want to go crazy because you don't want this to taste cheesy necessarily, but what this does is it kind of coats the outside of the tofu and gives it a little bit of depth of flavor that works really well with the spices. But that is it. That's one of my favorite ways to cook tofu, and so you can see how it's not just pan fried. I'm not just saying throw it in a frying pan and add spices. It's this specific way of doing it, and this this is how I cook my tofu for my creamy sun-dried tomato pasta, which is one of my favorite recipes and one that my family makes on repeat all the time. It's such a delicious method, and once you try it, you're gonna wanna make it all the time. If you don't like the taste or the texture of tofu, then this recipe is definitely for you because it is a multi-purpose creamy cheesy spread that you can use for lasagnas. I use it for my baked ziti, classic stuffed shells, or my pumpkin poblano stuffed shells. I also love using this as a creamy cheesy spread for like bagels and toast. I love to use it as a dip for warm pita, and I really like it for recipes like my shaved Brussels sprout and ricotta toast. It's such a fun way to eat vegetables because you've got your sourdough bread with a nice thick layer of the tofu ricotta, and then I saute shaved Brussels sprouts so that they're nice and thin. I saute them with some vegan bacon. You've got a little sweet, little smoky, little salty going on. That goes right on top, and it's a really great lunch or brunch option, and the tofu ricotta just makes it. It kind of ties everything together and makes it so delicious. Budget friendly, it can be made in under 3 minutes, and it's packed with protein, so let me show you how to make it. For this recipe, you're gonna need a food processor or a blender. Either one will work. I like to use a food processor. I think it works a little bit better, but if you're like me and you have a small kitchen, you don't want to have a bunch of big bulky appliances, this mini Ninja chopper from Ninja is perfect, and it's under $20. Super small but powerful. So you just add your tofu, your spices, which is salt, pepper, garlic. I like to do some dried Italian seasoning or oregano, olive oil, a little bit of nutritional yeast, and some fresh lemon juice. That gives it that nice tang that cheesy products can have. You're gonna blend this up, and it's going to get really nice and smooth. Sometimes I do fresh garlic, and sometimes I do garlic granules, depending on how potent I want that flavor to be. If I'm gonna use it as a spread, I often use the garlic granule so that it's not too overpowering. But either way, you're just gonna blend it on up, and as you can see, it's nice and thick, and it lasts in the fridge for up to a week. So you can make a batch of this and use it for all kinds of recipes, including stuffed shells. I have both of my stuffed shells recipes linked below. I've got this classic version, which starts with some store-bought marinara sauce, which I put in the bottom of a baking dish. I make a very simple creamy cashew basil sauce that is so good, very similar to pesto, but a little bit creamier. And then I just go ahead and I stuff the shells with a generous dollop of the tofu ricotta. Then nestle it on top of the sauce. We're gonna cover it with more sauce, and this is gonna bake in the oven. And this is such a great comfort food meal because it feels just like a very cozy, classic baked pasta dish, and it's got great flavor, but it's also surprisingly well balanced because of that tofu ricotta. So we've got carbs, we've got healthy fats, we've got fiber, we've got protein, lots of minerals in there. So it's actually a really satiating meal. A lot of times I serve this with some roasted broccoli, maybe some sauteed green beans, or a nice crispy chopped salad. And this is a delicious family-friendly meal that everybody will love. This is another one that is multi-purpose. It's also a meal prepper's dream, and it's kind of a showstopper as well. Like when you set it in the center of the table, it always gets a lot of oohs and ahs because you can decorate it with whatever kind of veggies and herbs you have on hand. Change it up every time, but it always ends up looking beautiful. And that is my tofu frittata. Tofu frittata is basically like a great big baked omelet. You can do it on the stovetop or in the oven. I've got recipes for both that I'll link below depending on what you want to do. But it's great because if you want to make it ahead of time, it holds up and reheats really well, and there's lots of fun ways that you can serve it. Sometimes I have it with some breakfast potatoes or some hash browns, some avocado toast on the side, but I also like to use tofu ricotta to make breakfast sandwiches. And I showed 3 different kinds of make-ahead breakfast sandwiches that you can make from the same tofu egg base. You just kind of change it up based on what flavor you want to add. It's a really great end of week brunch meal that I like to make on a Sunday morning. I make a big frittata. That way I'm getting rid of all of the kind of odds and ends in the refrigerator that I want to use up before I do my weekly grocery shop, and I have breakfast ready to go for the next couple days after that. So it's seriously such a great recipe to have in your back pocket, something I rely on all the time and I truly love. So here's how to do it. If I'm gonna be using water-rich vegetables like a squash or a zucchini, I like to kind of saute first, and I use this opportunity not only to draw the excess moisture out of the vegetables, but also to add flavor to them. So I quickly kind of halfway saute them with some spices. Here I used thyme, garlic, salt, and pepper. Set that aside, and then I make the tofu egg base. The tofu egg base is just a very simple blend of tofu, a little baking powder, spices like turmeric, paprika, salt, pepper, nutritional yeast. I also add a little little pinch of cinnamon, which seems weird, but it's really, really good. And it just kind of gives this depth and savory quality that's really nice. Then I dollop that on top of the veggies and I smooth it out to create kind of like a frittata, or you can think of it like a giant omelet that we're not going to fold. Every once in a while, I will top the top of it with some extra veggies and always cheese. I feel like cheese is really the thing that ties this all together. On this day, I did vegan Parmesan, but I like doing vegan cheddar or anything really. It's all good. This one I did on the stove, and you can also do this in the oven. I've got lots of recipes for different versions of this in the description box below. And as I mentioned, it's really fun to just kind of slice and serve. You can have this with avocado toast, or you can turn it into sandwiches. These breakfast sandwiches are my current fixation. I cannot get enough. I just find them to be so satisfying, and they really are nostalgic too. Reminds me of getting fast food breakfast, but it's so much healthier. This portion of the video was brought to you by Thrive Market, which is a membership-based online grocery store that I've been a member of for years and years, and it's such a convenient option, especially as a vegan, because I can click the vegan filter and everything that's not vegan goes away. So I thought I would show you what I got in a recent order. Always have dates, always. I actually keep them in my fridge because I weirdly like them cold, which is why I like this brand, the Julies, because they're really nice and soft. They don't get hard in the fridge. They just get, I don't know, I really like the cold, soft, chewy, caramelly situation. I also chop dates up and I put them in my oatmeal while it's cooking. The key is while it's cooking. There's something about putting the date in the oatmeal while it's cooking rather than just sprinkling it on top, which is also good. While it cooks, it kind of melts and it really infuses the oats with a really good flavor and just a hint of sweetness. I love it. Also got some more coconut milk. This is my favorite coconut milk to use, and I use it for a lot of my different curry recipes and my soups, especially my creamier soups. And another thing that I always pick up there is cereal. I love having cereal, usually as a snack. It's like a really great afternoon snack with some fruit, maybe a little peanut butter on top. It's just very satiating. They've got home items, pet items, personal care items, even body lotions, soaps, makeup, stuff for the kids, stuff for the house. It's a one-stop shop. So if you've been wanting to try Thrive Market, you can sign up to become a member for 1 month or for 1 year. And when you click the link to join today, you can get 30% off your first order and a free gift. So I really hope you guys enjoy that, and let's get back to the tofu recipes. I saved my favorite for last, and this might be the one that people are the most skeptical about, because I know that before I went vegan and before I had desserts like this, I would have heard of someone putting tofu in a pie and thought that they lost their mind. It doesn't sound good, I'm not gonna lie. But you guys, it is so delicious, and basically it's a way of making chocolate pudding. So this recipe also doubles as chocolate pudding. You create a custard, a chocolate custard. In this case, it's a chocolate almond custard, and you pour it into a pre-made pie crust. Sometimes I make it in a quick kind of Oreo cookie crust. Sometimes I buy a prepared graham cracker crust. You let it set overnight and it just becomes the smoothest, most decadent, silky. It's like a chocolate pudding pie in a pie crust. If you have a sweet tooth but you don't love to bake, this one is a great one to make because it's super easy and you don't need an oven. I love this dessert, you guys. Like, it looks so simple, and it's a simple homemade dessert, but it is so satisfying and delicious. We're gonna start by making a vegan chocolate pudding with some almond milk, a little bit of sugar, and a little bit of cornstarch. This is going to thicken and create a really nice custard base. Once this cools, you're gonna add it to the blender along with the tofu. And what I love about this recipe is it's not too sweet. It's sweet and it's delicious and it's decadent, but it's not sickly sweet. So if you don't like overly sweet desserts, you will love this recipe. Then I'm gonna go ahead and melt some semi-sweet vegan chocolate chips. I love these from Enjoy Life. They melt so nicely and they add the perfect amount of chocolatey flavor. I melt this in just 15 to 20 second intervals in the microwave and stir until smooth. Look at that. Then we're gonna go ahead and add some almond butter and a little bit of almond extract because this is a chocolate almond pie. I think it really tastes very kind of elevated. It feels fancy, but it's so simple, as you can see. Add in your salt. That's a really important ingredient. It sharpens all of the flavors and also kind of ties everything together. And then just blend until it's nice and smooth like this. It almost looks like a melted Frosty. That's exactly what you want. You're gonna pour this into a prepared pie dish, let it chill overnight, or if you wanna make this in the morning to have have it at dinner time, you can do that as well. It needs about 6 to 8 hours to get really nice and sliceable. And you can serve it like this, but just the way a cake isn't really done until you add the frosting, I think this absolutely is enhanced with vegan whipped cream and lots of raspberries. Best combo. I'd love to know what your favorite way to cook tofu is, so comment below and let me know if you've tried any of these methods or recipes, or if you have any questions about them. Also let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Don't forget to check out Thrive Market, and I will see you guys in a video very soon.